Well, that time has come. It's no longer that, right? We're the church of today, and very soon the keys are going to be passed to us. And so we want to discuss this a little bit as we've been in this pandemic for a little while. Listen, my name is Pastor John Coaxum. I'm based here in Columbus. I got my boy, Pastor Max Gomez, my associate pastor. He's here in Columbus as well. My girl, Rochelle, another young adult who's here, as well as Josiah, who's in Columbus as well. And check this out. One of the things that we're going to guarantee you tonight is that we're going to keep it all the way 100. Y'all in agreement with that? Can somebody say amen? All right, we're going to keep it 100 tonight, and we're going to be real. So there's a lot of things we want to talk about. We've got 2 interviews, just parts of them that we're going to play for you. We have to cut them just a little bit just to make sure that we have time for them. But afterwards, you can go to our YouTube page, and you can check out the full interview for yourselves. Now, we also want you guys to participate with us in the chat right now, because even as you participate and as you ask questions, we're definitely going to be following that, and we're going to be talking about it as well. So, guys, here's the first question that I want to ask you guys today. Now, we've been in this pandemic. You getting ready, Mac? We've been in this pandemic for about a year and a half, all right? We could not go into church, so you couldn't be wearing your nice suits, you know what I'm saying? Couldn't be wearing your nice dresses and heels and stuff like that. So you haven't been in the building. But I just want to ask this question, and you guys in the chat, you can respond as well. Have you missed in-person church the way it was, all right? Or are you saying, man, I'm straight. Based on what I'm seeing now, the creativity that's happening, I'm straight. I'm all good on the church scene. So if you're in the chat right now, you can either say, yep, I miss it, or you can say, I'm straight. I'm going to start over here with my boy, Pastor Max. Go ahead, man. What are you going to say? Tell us.
Do I miss church? No, I do not. The only thing I miss is just this.
Okay.
It's just hanging out with people my age, younger, older. I miss going to basketball games. I miss eating out. I miss potluck. I miss, game night stuff for that matter. But the way church was done, nah. I ain't trying to go back to that at all.
Mercy, my Lord. Come on, Rochelle, talk to us.
Don't get me wrong. I love a good, dress, heel suit, and a cute little makeup look. But no, I genuinely don't want to go back. I feel like we rely too much on what church gives us without realizing that we can have fellowship outside of church, right? We can talk about God outside of church, and because of my friends and my family, I do that all the time. So, church is not a necessity for me.
Okay. All right, Josiah?
Yeah, picking back off what she said, you're not supposed to rely on church. I think that's what COVID really taught me, to find my own, path. But for me, I do miss church. Just being honest, I miss the interactions. And really, on Sabbath, that kept me focused on the Sabbath. So, I do miss it.
Okay. So let me ask this other question real quick, and we're going to jump into our interview in a second. But, man, there used to be kind of like a loyalty for your home church, right? You go to your church, right? And church hopping was kind of frowned upon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to go to your church.
For sure.
You got to show up for their programs and stuff like that. How do you think young adults are feeling right now? Because, any given Sabbath, you can watch 30, 40 different programs if you want to. You can watch your favorite pastor every Sabbath in California if you want to. How do you think they're feeling now?
Feeling about going back to church?
No, just feeling about church hopping, the loyalty to their own church.
Is
Do
there
you think that's gone?
I won't speak about everybody else, but I know for me personally, I go to a couple churches. I go where I'm fed, but I also go where I make my commitments. So I'm a member of Ephesus, and I have commitments to Ephesus. So I do what I need to do for my church, but Ephesus is not particularly focused on young adults specifically. So I go where I'm fed, which is connection. We have Bible study every Friday night. We commune, we have fellowship. So that's where I go during those times. And I don't think that'll change even when Ephesus is back in person.
Wow, okay. Honesty. We here now. Yeah. Who else? Talk to me.
I'm the pastor. I want to hear the numbers.
Okay.
I want to hear the numbers.
I mean, really, Rochelle said it best. There's your home church, and those are your people. But then again, if there's something that's gonna feed me more than my home, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna make that step. So yes, I love my home church. I want to stay there, but I have no problem going outside and getting fruit. Where it's beared. So
it's about being fed. I hear that.
Yeah.
All right, talk to me, man, real quick.
I ain't got nothing else, man. I like this.
No.
Okay.
Move on.
All right, let's go. So check this out. Here's what we want to do. We're going to jump into an interview real quick. Just sit tight. Pastor Regina Johnson from the Grace Community Church in Cleveland, Ohio, did an interview with one of my friends as well, Keon Abner. He's actually a young adult who is planting a church right now. And as a matter of fact, he is not Adventist, right? And one of the things we do, we kind of watch ourselves and watch other Adventists to get tips and stuff like that. But can we not learn from others in other denominations? So we're going to play part of this interview for you with Pastor Regina Johnson. As soon as that video is over, she's going to come in and talk to you a little bit, and our discussion is going to continue. So stay right where you are.
Excited about what we're about to do. Okay, I want to introduce you guys to my friend Keon Abner, Pastor Keon Abner. Hello, Pastor.
Hello, Pastor Regina.
Yes, I'm super excited because we're going to talk about just the church and young adults. And honestly, Keon, is so funny because anytime I call you, we ended up talking about this topic and we ended up on the phone forever because we literally can go on and on. But we're not going to go on too much today, but I do want to kind of get into the topic. I want to get into kind of what's going on with young adults and the church. Before we do that, I would love if you could tell me just a little bit about you and who you are.
Yeah. So I'm Keon Abner, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and I am married to Ashley, and we have a 2-year-old daughter and a baby girl on the way. And yeah, I am a Cleveland fan. So to all you haters out there, God bless you.
God bless you.
But yeah, we're good. I'm 26. Went to Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, and am home to plant a church.
Yeah, so I'm happy you ended on that because that's exactly what I want to talk about. So you are in a phase right now where you are planting a church. Okay, you're planting a church. I want to know what made you want to plant a church.
So I think there was a bunch of things. I never was a church planter. That was never where my head was going. It wasn't what I was thinking. I thought I was always going to go to an existing church and help revitalize an existing church or turn a church in a new direction, when it just became clear and apparent to me that my leadership style was not going to be accepted at an existing church. Churches, from my leadership style, a church needed to be in crisis mode and desperate and willing to do whatever it could to survive. And there are a lot of churches like that. They just don't know it. And so I just knew that I wasn't in that position. And it just became more and more apparent that God was calling my wife and I to plant a church, primarily because I did not ever work at a church that I felt comfortable inviting people who I met off the street to. And so it was God kind of stirring into me that if we were going to make impact, we needed to plant. And we didn't know what that was going to look like for us. Yeah.
So you said make impact. So that's something that you want to do. You're not just trying to do it, but you're trying to impact the community. You're trying to impact people, right? And so a lot of young adults, and I'll say we, have problems with the church, okay? One thing I want to point out, so you're not Seventh-day Adventist. Tell us, what is your denomination?
So it's called an evangelical, I don't even know the name of it. It's a covenant order of evangelical Presbyterian.
Yes. Okay. So you're Presbyterian, right? So you're Presbyterian. But one of the things I want to point out, because I think sometimes as Adventists and growing up in the Adventist church, sometimes we're just kind of like, we feel like we're isolated. We feel like, oh man, our churches are like not, I guess we don't like where they're going, or, we have issues with the leadership. But it's not just like a one denominational thing. It's just in general, there is young people, we're crying out for something more when it comes to the church.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact
in America.
Yeah, and so I love the fact that you're saying that you were able to kind of like I guess step away and, well, not even step away, but you were able to decide to go another route and say, okay, I'm going to plant a church. God called you to do that. So I guess one of the things, because I love what you're doing. They don't know about your journey, but I want to hear, like, I guess you can tell us a little bit about the planting that you're doing, right? But also I want to hear kind of what things that you found while you're planting the church.
Yeah. Yeah. So to start, so we set out to plant. I went to our denomination, went to the leaders in our church, told them about this call. They set me on a track to prepare me in terms of, this is what you need to learn, this is what you need to do, this is how you train. Specifically, I trained in 2 areas in specific. One is discipleship and disciple making, and then the second is Christian community development principles. And so there's an organization, an international organization called CCDA, which you can look up all the information about that. But those were the 2 things. So disciple making and Christian community development. And disciple making, I mean, we can go on in that, but Christian community development is the essence of the church coming alongside with communities in order to empower the community to make transformation. And it's really understanding that the church needs to be at the root or the heart of community transformation. And so that's what we study. And so one of the things that shocked me the most was just how, particularly with inner city communities, just how disillusioned and frustrated they were with churches. Normally, when you think about starting a church, most of the time you work within the church to start a church. Well, Christian community development was showing us that in order to plant a church well, we needed to go outside the church to figure out how to plant a church. And so what we did was we started listening, talking to the community. What's your issue with the church? What do you, when you think of a new church is starting in your neighborhood, what does that stir up in you? And really give them the space to be completely honest with you and truthful about how they feel. And one of the things that I was shocked by the most was just how irritated and frustrated communities are with the churches in our community, and that some people don't even know that some of the churches are open, number one. And this is pre-pandemic.
Right.
Second, some of them are disillusioned with the reality that they come with these fresh ideas, but everything is driven by come to my church.
Right.
The second disillusionment was there was this church planters have this arrogant attitude when they come to communities and like, we're bringing Jesus to the community. We're bringing hope to the community. And there are people in the community like, Jesus is already here. Hope is already here. We don't need you to bring that to us. And I mean, if you really think about it, it's like, imagine you meet a girl, right? Or in your case, Regina, you meet a guy and he's like in your face and y'all on a date and he's just like, I'm about to bring hope to your life. I'm about to bring purpose to your life. You were nothing before I got here. You were nothing before, right?
Slow down. Right.
Right? And so, but that's the attitude. And so when we set out to plant, I was shocked that I needed to learn less about the church and more about my community if we were going to do this well.
Right. It's more so about what the community actually needs, like what and rather than what we think they need, rather than us trying to fix people or, and even save people, quote unquote, right? I think that's always our mindset. It's more so coming and saying, how can I come alongside you? I love one of the things that you're doing. You're coming alongside the community, right? So you have space in your space where you're saying, hey, look, I can help facilitate some of the programs you're already running. Like you're already doing some of these things. I don't have to go recreate them. We can work together to make the community better. And that's one of the things that I love that you're doing, so much. If I had to pick one thing, that's one of the things I love. And that's where I see the church going. I know that's kind of a question, like after COVID, the different changes that are going to need to be made and different things like that. But I think even pre-COVID, after COVID, like that's where we have to be headed rather than having this savior mentality that you mentioned, right? So I think, I guess, okay, I have a question. So I think a lot of, because we can talk about the frustrations all day, okay? We can sit here and talk about the frustrations of the church And I'm sure in the comments, you guys can go ahead and just write out some of the things that you're frustrated with the church. We all have something. But I guess the question is, if we're frustrated, like, what do you tell the person that's frustrated and who's not a pastor, who is in a position to kind of go and plant their own church? Like, what do we tell those young adults?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, so I'm going to just say this. Before I became a church planter, I was a principal. And what I always used to say when I was a principal was, if a parent came and complained to me about something in my school and they were not a part of the PTA, that was not going to be a good meeting. Because I do not want to hear your complaints when you're not putting in the work, the time, the energy, and the effort to help make something work. So the first thing I would say is check our frustration and make sure we actually got the right to be frustrated. Yeah. And I'm not saying that there's no reason to be frustrated. I'm just saying you have the privilege of being frustrated when you are actively at the helm trying. The second thing I would say after we check our frustration is, what is God specifically calling you to do?
Yeah.
And based on what God is specifically calling you to do, what is God teaching you in that process? Because a lot of times we read a book, we go to a conference, we listen to a TED Talk, and we get this fresh revelation. And now our job is to go force and get everybody around us to understand what God has just made us understand. And it's like, yes, but what is God doing in you? And what do you need to unlearn? What do you need to check? What do you need to really approach as you approach that work? Because it's like, right, okay, so now you got the right to be frustrated. And then after you got the right to be frustrated, you learn some new things. But you need to really make sure that we don't get idolatrous in our desire to help reach the church, because I understand the frustration, but I also have watched the generation before us work and work and work and give and participate and pray to see the church become all it can be. Maybe they don't know all the best practices, and maybe they're not being exposed to all the content that we as young adults and millennials are constantly being confronted with. But we got to remember that they have paid some dues and they've done some work. And so even in that process of being frustrated and disillusioned and hurt, or whatever the case may be that we all go through, also figure out, like, am I really doing the best that I can to come alongside the vision that's been set before us as a church? Because that's we got to deal with that. So I would say to a frustrated person, really, really check your heart. Really get in the helm, like get at the helm, get working. Because I found that the generation before us is less apprehensive to the things we want to implement when they see us working and when they see us actively involved in that work.
You said so.
We talked about a lot in that interview, guys. He gave us a lot of good knowledge, a lot of nuggets, and I kind of want to hop right in there. I know he ended. Let's stop where he ended. He ended on check your heart, right? Just kind of saying, I think a lot of young adults, we have a lot of frustrations where we get frustrated, and sometimes we just don't know what to do with all that stuff that gets built up, right? But he kind of checked us just a little bit. He's like, we do have the other generations who have put a lot into the church, who are still giving and who are still doing those things. So I kind of want to hear, honestly, I want to open it up for kind of how you feel about that.
Honestly, I think it's really hilarious because I'm listening to this interview for the first time, just like the rest of y'all. And literally before we went live, we were sitting here and we were literally talking about what he just said. Like, we as young adults, we expect so much, but it's like we don't want to give anything. Like, we just want to keep taking and take. Like, we need to receive and we need to receive, but like in receiving, you also have to realize that you have to give something. Like, what are you giving back to your church? How often are you a part of business meetings, making changes? How often are you saying, hey, I want to do something in the community. Let's do this, that, and the third, and I'll run it. You know, I just need you to have my back when I do it. Like, we're always expecting them to approve everything we say. Like, we as the young adults, because we are the future, we have to make that initiative. We have to take that first step, that initiative. And when they see us working, I definitely agree with him. I definitely agree, like, those who are above us, those who are in those big boss chairs that we're upset about, that we hear talking about all this stuff and making all the big decisions, like, when they see that we can handle the work, they'll step down and let us take over. Let us be the board members. Let us make all the major decisions. But right now, we're hopping in and out of churches. Right now, we're going where we're fed. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and try to be like, I'm not part of the problem, but what are you expecting if you're not willing to give forth something in a place like this? Is not your home. They're not your parents. They're not gonna just give you everything you want. You have to be willing to give.
Well, come on and preach, sis. Come on and preach. Yeah, go ahead, homie.
So I've thrown ideas to elders, to pastors, and I've been, and everybody's told me, start what you're doing by yourself. And at first I was like, man, y'all my church, help me out. But now that I'm hearing this, it's like, seriously, like you just said, we have to get grounded first. I can't just ask somebody, can you help me with this? And I have no foundation. So what you said, we have to build a foundation. So lead by example, actually do it and then have them be a part of the process. So I think for our generation and the young adults, that's what we need to start doing is, taking initiative first. Even if the church doesn't okay it first, we can start it by ourselves and then the church might, be accepted of it.
Yeah, y'all taking ownership right now. I want to hear from y'all in the comments. Like, what do you think? Are you a part of your church? Are you trying to, as she said, give back to your church? Are you trying to utilize your gifts, your talents, or are you more so like, I'm not trying to hear it because the people in the big boss chair and the people in the big boss chair are not going to hear me or are not going to listen. Where are you guys at? We want to hear from y'all in the comments. Max, what you got?
What do I got? What do I got, man? Okay. So I'll say this right here, man. So, many young adults, not all, many young adults are event driven. Oh yeah. So if there's an event, we gonna be there in 20, 30, 40 of us. We gonna be there in droves. But the question is, can you be there every Saturday? See, that's the question. So if there's a service project, if there's a block party, if we feeding the homeless, if we going to the prison, like if there's an event, we'll all be there. Now, young adults, now in my mind, there's three categories of young adults. There's young adults that are in school. There's young adults like myself, just graduated and are working. Then there's young adults that are married, got kids, right? So each of these young adults is, well, I got school to do. The other one is, I just started working. The other one is, well, I got kids. Like, so church is not the center of my life. It's just something that I go to. It's a hobby, it's whatever. And the question is, again, like he said, how you gonna complain if you ain't part of the solution? Now here's the flip side. The flip side is, why would I want to take a seat into a place that I don't find attractive, I don't find appealing, I don't even trust the institution? So why would I want to take a seat at the table? And I think that's what I'm saying. I think on one end, we do gotta check young adults. Like, you can't complain if you're not willing to put the work. But on the other end, it's like, well, this environment isn't even attractive to work to begin with.
Well, I mean, what do I say after that? But I think I love how you so eloquently, Pastor Max, so eloquently painted both sides, because I think there is like this tug of war where we have a lot of young adults who are, frustrated, we're complaining, and we're saying that we want something, but then we're really not committed. I mean, quote unquote, for real. But then you have some that are like trying to be committed, but it's like, it's hard to be committed to something if they're not committed back to me, right? And so I guess that's why we're here. It's like, well, what do we do, right? What do we do? What do we say to that young adult that's trying to make up their mind? That's the real question. Like the person that's trying to make up their mind, where it's like, I see both sides, I'm torn, I'm stuck in the middle. What do I do? Do I like throw up deuces to the church? Do I stay here and fight? Do I stay here and not only even fight, but do I decide to actually be committed? You know, do I decide to actually give? Do I decide to actually use my talents and to start doing things in the church and to get involved? And I mean, of course, well, I won't give my answer. What do you guys think? What y'all think?
I'll say this real quick. So, man, your boy was talking about you ask the community questions. Yeah. Right? So, man, one of the things growing up is my mom always told me, Vicks Vaporub cures everything. That's what my mom always told me. You got a fever, put on Vicks. You got a broken ankle, put on Vicks. You got cancer, just put on Vicks. Just everything, right? And then I think that we, without knowing, maybe as a church, have traditionally done the same thing. Go to every community, you just need Vicks. You just need Vicks. You just need Vicks. No, but what if we already got Jesus here? Yeah. And I think the question is, right, young adults, I know plenty of young adults who, they don't tithe, but they'll take their tithe money and put it somewhere else. Now, we're not here to talk about tithe and no tithe. What we're here to talk about is young adults are committed to a cause. They'll give to a cause. Yeah. So if the church goes into community, okay, we see what they need. They got Jesus. What they don't have is school supplies. And we did a cause for a school drive every year. Young adults would flood the giving, I believe, just for the cause.
So I got two questions, and I want to hear what you guys have to say, because Max brought out a lot of good things and a lot of good points. So I think the answer to the question, all right, because I posed the question, like, what do we do, right? If we see both sides, it's like, do we stay, do we go, what do we do? I think the answer, and I hear you saying, is, of course, we stay, okay? We stay. Don't leave the church, guys. Don't leave. All right. So we stay, but we're also looking for changes in the church, right? And so with those changes, then it's like, all right, I can be about this. Like, I'm not going to come in and we're going to connect with the community. We're going to do all those things. So I want to hear, like, when we look and think of what the church will look like, right? How do you guys feel about that? How do you feel about staying in the church and fighting for it, but also making those different shifts to now where we're focused on the community? Like he was saying, kind of everything that we're doing is driven by the community. I want to hear what you guys think about that.
So first I'm going to answer the question that's on the screen for us. I'm definitely willing to admit that it's an excuse, because I'm a full-time student. I work 20 hours a week, and I still have time to drive my behind over to Ephesus and do the stuff that I told them I was going to do for them. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, I don't have time. Even when, like, because I told y'all at the beginning, I do two churches. I do Connection and I do Ephesus. Sometimes Connection doesn't get the forefront of my devotion because I've already made a commitment to Ephesus. But I'm not saying I don't have time, because I'm in the church, I'm doing the work, and there are weeks that I'm in that sanctuary 4 or 5 times a week, the same amount of time I would spend at school, the same amount of time I would spend at a job. So to say that you're too busy for church is to almost say you're too busy for Jesus, or to say you're too busy for God. Maybe there's something you're missing. I'm not gonna call nobody out here. I'm gonna sit here and mind my business. But to answer your question, it's not going to be easy. Like, you can't expect things to change overnight. You don't grow your hair overnight. You don't learn a subject overnight. Like, so when you go to church and you're like, I'm frustrated with these people, you still have to be like, the frustration is not everything. Like, yes, these people are in charge. Yes, these people are the heads, the faces, but like, your commitment to God should not be affected by the people you're around. Oh my. Your commitment to God should be affected by your relationship with God, by what God is telling you to do. It's not going to be easy. He told us that already. Like, it's not going to be easy to come in and open up a community center at Ephesus. Like, it's not going to be easy. But if I have a plan, and I know regardless of whether Ephesus or Hilltop or Central is going to promote my plan, I can go to a bank and start a community center all by myself. And then if they decide, oh, this is a great idea, they'll hop on. Like, I still have to be willing to put forth the effort. And that is a problem that I see a lot more nowadays. people are kind of like, well, I go to church, but that's it.
For me, I think is one of the biggest problems in the church. If we have a youth event, I feel like a lot of the older people will be like, oh, that's the youth. They don't want us there. So with that being said, in order for church to move forward, that gap has to be bridged. The older generation has to, you know, they have to commune with us and be open. The people I'm closest to, like, some of you may know her, Marsha Russell. She will, Miss Marsha, I love you, Miss Marsha, if you're watching. But this lady will be completely transparent with me, 100% transparent with me. And I have found myself to get, and I have known Miss Marsha for quite a while, but the year where she was open with me is when I really was like, okay, I learned something from you. Now we can move forward in the church. So I think if the older generation, and us too, because a lot of times, oh, how you doing in college? You know, I'm good. My major finance. That's it. But we don't try. So it's a both side things if we can bridge that gap.
Yeah, what I hear,
Real fast. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
I'm going to take it real quick. But another thing that I noticed is that, like, we're supposed to be a family, but we don't act like a family. Like, we only talk to people when we see them in church. And like, I would say, yeah, like we do church together, but we don't do life together. And when we do life together, we're more comfortable. We're more willing to open up. They're more willing to open up because, I mean, they're essentially our aunties and uncles, our granddaddies and our grandmamas. And like, I know my grandmama talked to me all the time. My granddaddy talked to me all the time. So when they asked stuff, I told them, even if I was irritated or like they said something about my life that I didn't think I agreed with, I still listened to them like, yes, Nanny, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. But that's because she cared.
So what I hear y'all saying is relationships. And it's so funny because that's literally what I was about to say. So I love that you hopped right in there because it's like relationships is another thing that's missing literally in the church itself. So it's not just young adults. It's not just something that is a young adult problem. It's the church and the fact that as a church, we're missing connection. As a church, connection, right? As a church, that was not a plug because we're also missing the fact that we're not going to the community. You know what I'm saying? No, but seriously, we're missing that connection. And it's like, if we start actually building on these relationships, right? If we start getting out in our communities and it gives our young adults, it gives us a reason to want to stay. It gives us a reason to want to be a part of it. But the thing about it is I love what you said, and I want to end on this, and then I'm going to introduce our next interview, because you said it's not just the other generations, because people can't build relationships if we not about it. Like, they can't build relationships if we're like, nah, I'm good. Y'all are the old people, go to the old people. Or we just want to have our young adult stuff. We just want to have our own events. We want to do our own thing and then be mad that somebody's not trying to build a relationship with us when we are also not doing our part. We're not open. We're not willing. And we're not giving. You know what I'm saying? We're not really trying. We're not committed. And so like we got work to do. So I'm down for the cause, right? I'm down for it, but it's just like, yo, like let's not only complain, but let's complain. Well, yeah, I mean it's okay, complain, but let's also let's get to work. Like let's also put in the work. Let's put in the commitment. Let's show up. And I mean, like, what would imagine this? Like if all the young adults, like for real, if we like showed up. Like if we showed up, like there's no, I mean, what churches would look different. And on that point, I want to introduce our next interview. Pastor Coaxum did an interview with Pastor Doggette and Pastor Doggette, and it was really good. We're going to show you a piece of it. We want you to lean in and listen. And they're going to be talking about the church and the church looking different. The church and the church looking different. So we want you to watch and come back with some questions. Listen in, and as you're watching, write your questions in the comments, and we can address them once we are ready. Once we come back. So we'll see you soon.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. And I think too, a lot of pastors
might be, maybe not a lot, but a few may be uncomfortable, right, with having the conversation after the sermon. We do that now at my church, but I kind of like it. I mean, you get to see people reflecting on what you said and connecting the dots between what you said. I mean, how many times have I stood at the door and somebody said something to me, Pastor, what you said here was great. I love it when you said this. And I never actually said that at all. Like they just interpreted something else. Like I never said that, right? So I think the dialogue could be good. But just let me stay here for 1 second, just on culture. Real quick answer from you both. Maybe, and you kind of touched on this, Dr. Doggett, the pomp and circumstance, right, of church a little bit. You know, the walking in, I don't know, man, maybe even the suits and the ties. Do you see that going away where people, we have to make people feel more comfortable dressing down and saying, listen, you don't have to dress up anymore. What do you guys think, real quick?
Well, if I could just jump in real quick, Doc, and I want you to, affirm or go in a different direction if you want to. But one of the things that I think is leading to this, disconnecting from what we see, especially in our church and our denomination, is that there's now an understanding that a lot of what we do is cultural and not biblical, as it relates to how we're dressing, as it relates to what we do. There's a book, and Dad put me on this. It's called Pagan Christianity, and the idea is that a lot of people are becoming aware that you just want me to be a cultural Adventist, not a real Christian. And the idea is that we're getting away from this cultic responsibility where we feel the need to operate in this specific way in order to feel saved. That is no longer working because there is now a new awakening to this idea that, wait a second, you're telling me I don't have to be a vegetarian to be saved? Like those things that we like to push as being priority within our denomination are no longer going to cut it. Because there's now an awakeness. Y'all know everybody's woke nowadays. Whoa, there's a level of understanding now that what you guys are pushing as it relates to specific types of music that are holier than others and different stuff that we like to make moral issues, when we recognize that they're not, it's very difficult to get people engaged when we see so much being propped up on moral footing when it has nothing to do with Bible and everything to do with culture. So a lot of it has to change because, again, you're no longer going to get away with just saying stuff because we're going to fact check you. And we already understand that a lot of what you espoused over the decades didn't lead to transformation in the lives of people who came before me. So why would I embrace it? Because you think it's holier. And I know that based on the Bible, it's not even referenced in Scripture.
Wow, that's a word. Dr. Doggett.
No, I just want to stamp that. That has my stamp of approval. I totally agree with that. Yeah, we're going to have to be much more biblical and less cultural.
Absolutely.
We're going to be
all right. So guys,
all.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree. Let's go. Let's jump into leadership real quick. Leadership. Do any new leadership roles maybe emerge as a result of, when we talk about new ministry after the pandemic, right? Do any new ministry roles rise to the surface as to, you know what, if you can get it, you should have this, maybe an outreach pastor, a community pastor, online pastor, more volunteers. What do you think is needed in terms of leadership beyond the pastor going forward into this season after the pandemic?
Dr. Doggett?
No. JD, you're working on a PhD in leadership, man. You take this ball and run with it, if you will. But yeah, there are absolutely different roles that are going to have to rise up. And I will just say this and then toss the ball to JD. We're not going to be able to get the work done with just volunteers anymore, or just a pastor and an associate pastor. If we're going to be players in the game, and I mean, if we're going to get a share of the market, an opportunity to really communicate with a good share of the market, we're going to have to get off of our this view that is not spiritual if you're paying for it, and go back to the Bible, where in fact those who worked in the temple, and the temple was open 24/7, were paid to make it happen. And in our churches, we're going to have to start paying staff, not just a visionary pastor. That's our job, to cast vision. But then we have to have people who help to execute the vision through training and through supervising the volunteers. And it's going to take a number of those in our churches to make it happen, especially since we're moving out of the building and we're getting out into the community. You mentioned one, and that is someone who handles the internet. We're going to have to be professional with that. We're going to need to pay somebody to make sure that our internet presence isn't somebody holding up a phone, trying to film stuff as they shake their hands shake. That's worse than not having an internet presence at all. That's all I'm saying. And I'll let it go and pass it to JD. But we're going to have to embrace the idea of having paid staff, especially since it's biblical.
Right. Well, I'll jump in, and he just mentioned a few of them. Even when it comes to the internet pastor, you still need responsibilities that you can give and delegate to individuals in that space that go beyond just manning the stream. You need people you need virtual ushers, you need virtual greeters, you need to consider the virtual atmosphere just as you would consider the physical presence of those attendees who come to your church. You have to distribute those responsibilities in the virtual space as well. And also, I'll say this. I know you asked for us to look at the crystal ball. One of the things I know for sure is that a lot of the practices that will be mainstay in the next 5 years are being birthed right now. So the idea that we should be bold in our experimentation and we should go out there without hesitation to try things. One of the things I do know is that there's going to be an emerging of micro churches, distributed churches. The idea of the off-site gathering is so critically important. So what does that mean? You need to now be delegating responsibilities to people who can facilitate those gatherings and who can, here it is again, maintain connection. So although they are gathering in a different facility at home or in another location, they should still be able to feel a part of and be equipped to fulfill the mission. So the idea is not filling up a building. The idea is helping people fulfill the mission. And if your mission, again, has been reduced to the filling up of a small room with attendees, then your vision is way too small. So when it comes to equipping and facilitating the community initiatives, the connection between members, there's so much in terms of leadership that can be provided in helping that to become a success in our local congregations.
Let me ask a question, rhetorical question. We talk about 7-day-a-week ministry. And of course, again, the temple was open 7 days a week. If you want to bring in your sacrifice, you didn't have to wait till Sabbath to do it. Right. You could bring it on in because there are folks working in shifts over in the temple. If we're going to have 7-day-a-week ministries, how's that going to happen with volunteers who are working 8 hours, 10 hours, got kids at home? They got to get ready for school the next day and whatnot, and then try to put a spiritual guilt trip on them for not coming up to church at the end of a long work day to try to do a little something that night. That makes zero sense at all. So I'm just saying, let's go back to the biblical model. When God set up the sanctuary, he set it up so that there were workers around that place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. And speaking of the temple and speaking of facilities, right? JD, you talked about not filling up a building, but fulfilling the mission. I really like that. That should be on the shirt too, by the way. That's awesome. Yeah. But talk to somebody right now, real quick, guys. With the time we have left, because somebody's going to go into a building project this year, or maybe next year. They're going to be building a church, or they're going to be looking for a facility. What do they need to be looking for now? Because one of the things that I've seen, and my experience has been, is that we build for us and we build for now, right? We build for our people and for our stuff, and then we build for this moment, and our buildings and facilities don't stand the test of time. If you could just pick one thing that churches kind of need to focus on, a pastor needs to focus on building something in his new facility, what do you think that would be? Is it ATMs in the lobby? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Whatever. Y'all talk to me. What is it?
Let me jump in first because you have a lot that you can distribute here, Pops. But let me say this. You said one thing, and that's so difficult. So I'm going to kind of go approach it in a different way. I think we need to shift our truncated view of our members. The idea that they just want to come sit down and hear a sermon and then their lives are going to be better. No, we need to start viewing ministry through a holistic lens. So we start seeing our members as people and not numbers. People who are dealing with depression, who maybe need some mental health emphasis days where we talk about how you can deal with the mental health issues of your experience. The holistic view perspective is what I think we need to take here. And of course, when you look through that lens, the options are there's a multiplicity of different areas where you can focus your ministry as it relates to what I can do. I know, Dr. Doggette, I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but in his context in particular, his building has, I call them sanctuaries, although they aren't, for the gathering of people. They're sanctuaries for volleyball, sanctuaries for this and that. The idea is that they're meeting the needs of the community in which they've been placed, divinely placed. And that's what I think needs to be done. Shift the perspective to seeing people as holistic in nature and not, truncating them to where they just need to hear a sermon. There's way more ministry to be had than that.
I received that. Dr. Doggett?
Yeah, I know we're running out of time, man. We've gone over the length of time we were supposed to, but I will tell you that the concept for me is our buildings need to be like the well where Jesus met the woman. Yeah. He met the woman where she was living life. He never would have gotten her to come to his church. She was a Samaritan. He was a Jew. And so he had to go where she was living life. Everybody needs water. Everybody engages in certain types of activity. And if you find yourself, if you position your church in that place, right on Main Street, the center of Main Street, where people are just living life, where the traffic is flowing, then you'll have the opportunity to impress them and impact them with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So we have an athletic center that also has an education component to it. There's a medical component to it. There's karate, there's gymnastics, there's basketball, there's volleyball, there's softball, there's a cafe. People come there to live life. I don't have to beg them to come. They're coming to do what they do. I just need to meet them at the well now. And in a low pressure way, low pressure sales, I can introduce them to Jesus through the way we conduct our business there. I can catch them over at the vending machine, and I can start a conversation that can lead to an eternal life conversation. And that's what we've got to think about with our buildings. Where are people going? What are they doing? If they're not living life in your place, they're only coming for a service, we're doomed, because many folks aren't coming to a service again. Gen Z, only, 41% of Gen Z says they want to have any physical worship kind of a setting, period. They get it online. 71% of old folks, baby boomers say, yeah, I need to go to a service. But the bulk of society isn't going to get it that way. So our churches have to be places people are coming to live life. And it needs to happen 7 days a week, not just on Sabbath and Wednesday night. That makes no sense. So we got to rethink our buildings. We got to rethink our mission. And we're going to have to break out of our boxes and do ministry like God has placed it in our hearts to do. To every young person, and this is Young Folks Camp meeting, I want to say, please, what God has placed on your heart, do something about it. Don't die with that dream, unborn. Don't do it. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. God gave it to you for a reason, and it may have never been done that way before. So what? There are new chapters to write before the return of our Lord, and you've got a pen. God's given you what to write. Start writing. Don't wait for it to be approved and voted. Start writing. Let's get on with it. Times will never be what they were before. Things have changed. And praise God they have. We are less institutional than we've ever been. So now we can be more biblical than we've ever been. And we can go ahead and get the mission done. At the end of the day, I end with this statement. At the end of the day, these churches as we know them are going to be shut down. If it was crucial that we do what we did, they would not have been shut down. In fact, God would not have allowed this season of COVID. But he's given us a taste of what real ministry looks like, when you've got to dig and you've got to get creative and you got to find ways, instead of going to a church and being sedated and made to feel real good and your pains go away because the singing sounds good, etc. Times have changed. What God's placed in you, act on it. Don't wait for it to be voted. Don't talk about what's not happening. Make it happen right now. In the beginning, God created. So every young person who's listening, time for you to start creating.
That's right.
That's my final word, bro.
No, that's good, Doc. That's good. You segue right into the last category, and you said your piece. That was going to be my last question. It was regarding ministry. But what would you say to some young adults who are contemplating not coming back, unsure of the church? I think you said it well. But to JD, the resident young adult here and the creator of the Quarantine Revival, just give us the last statement on this interview right here. What would you say to your peers right now who are just like, I don't really need to be in the building. I may not even need to attend church. I don't want to be involved. Forget that, forget this. What are you saying to them right now?
I'm saying that we need more people like you who think differently, and that this spiritual entrepreneurship, the idea that the Bible refers to it as apostleship, we need people who are leaders who will find tomorrow's solutions when most people can only see today's problems. So in other words, don't be just focused on what you're irritated about. I'll say this, not everyone is irritated about what you're irritated about. Your frustration might be an indication of your ministry. So what you got to do, and I'm encouraging you to do this, I want you to sit down, put your thoughts out on paper, and Dr. Doggette just said it, don't wait, go. Again, you're asking God for guidance, but he can't steer a parked car. You got to get moving, and he'll lead you as you're moving in the direction of your divine destiny. But God definitely has a reason for which he created you. And I think that right now you are here for a reason at this specific time in salvation history, and you have something to give. So be okay with the criticism. A lot of the stuff that is new will be criticized, but please know that those who criticize you today will be sitting under your tutelage tomorrow because you were willing to go out there and boldly do something about what you see. And remember, don't miss, I get it, you don't want to go back to things how they used to be, that's okay, but don't miss the idea of mission. The mission is to share the love of Jesus Christ with the world. So find ways to do that. And listen, you're going to be just fine. We're going to come out of this stronger than when we went into it. And I'm excited to hear the testimonies of this conference and all of you young adults who are about to do something about what you see.
There you have it, guys. The theme is clear. We're not next. We're right now. Thank you to the prophets who have outlined for us what could possibly come in the future, and maybe some good advice on changes to our facilities, culture, and ministry. Dr. Doggette, JD, thank you guys so much for being here with us. I know our young adults appreciate it. And all of you who are watching, just stay tuned. We're going to talk about this with our panel coming up right now. God bless.
One of the best conversations I've had about church, like ever, honestly. Like Pastor Doggette taught me, and JD is my boy, but honestly, man, they came with the truth. So you guys at home, you didn't see the full interview. Listen, that was only the second half of the interview. There's a whole nother first half with a bunch more good information. We're going to put that up afterwards, but we want to discuss what we talked about just now in that second half. So I basically asked them to talk about, man, how is the church going to look after this pandemic is over, particularly for young adults? For most of us right now, like the church is forever split between before the pandemic and after the pandemic, right? We just got to accept that reality. And there's one thing that Pastor Doggette said, y'all, and I'm going to let y'all respond to this. He said, times will never be like they were before, and praise God for that. Your boy said praise God for that, which is basically saying that there are some things that must change in order for us to go forward. All right. I see Max shaking his head over here, so I know he wants to preach.
They go first.
But I guess let me start here. I'm gonna give some pop-ups real quick. All right. In terms of things that should change. What do you think about dress? Right? Should there be this expectation that we dress up from now? Oh, man. That we dress up from now on. Is that something that you think young adults care about? Or if we were to just say, hey, listen, like literally, come as you are, do you think that would appeal to young adults more? Talk to me.
Okay. Me personally,
sure.
As far as going to church looking, fresh or whatever, you should, not for other people, but for God. Okay. Now, if somebody comes in with jeans, or somebody comes into church with shorts,
we should not be giving them side eyes. We should be praising God that they are in the house instead of
outside doing
something else.
usually things about it. They're there right there in that space. So what I feel like as like somebody who
Was raised up in a church and what my parents have taught me, you know, like as far as dress goes, I think that is something that, you know, should be kept, but I don't think people should be judged if they're not keeping it.
Okay, fair. We appreciate that. Anybody else talk to it? What do you think?
I think for the older generations, this is gonna suck a lot because I genuinely don't think that there's a need for everyone to be dressed in a suit and tie, heels with the good old, y'all know the old ladies with the church hats. Like I don't even gotta explain the fit to you. Like you know exactly what it looks like. Like there's no need for that. And I enjoy doing it. So yes, I'm doing it. I'm doing it for myself. I'm doing it because this is my time to come to church and be with God, and I want to present myself as best as I can to God. But there are people who are coming off the streets who only dress up for work. There are people who are coming off the streets who ain't got a suit, who ain't got dress pants. And for you to just be looking at them with your nose turned up because you can afford it and you don't know if they can is a problem. Like, it's how we know, like, there's very rarely visitors in churches. And why is that? Because when they do show up and they do come in and they're dressed as they are, y'all are looking at them like, why would you even come to church? What was the point of you being here? Like, you ain't even presenting yourself to God properly. But like, where in the Bible does it say I need to wear a dress and heels?
So that's exactly, I'm glad you said that, because that's what he said in the interview. He was like, a lot of things are more cultural rather than biblical. And nowadays, you know, we as young adults, man, you know, we have a supercomputer in our hands. We can go fact check everything, right? So if you're telling me the Bible says I can't dress up, well, where's that in the Bible? So I don't know, can you talk to that, Pastor Gomez, maybe just how you feel about it, but him saying that a lot of this stuff, particularly dress, is cultural, not necessarily biblical.
Yeah, no, I think, so in my mind, so on one end, I'm thinking as a young adult, but I'm thinking also as a pastor. So I can hear the rebuttals in my mind of the adults. The rebuttal is, you ought to bring your best to the Lord. The rebuttal is modesty, right? The rebuttal is, you know what I'm saying, what if you were called in front of the president? Would you dress that way? That's something that I've heard before, right? And in my mind, right, no,
Which president?
Which president, right? But we're not gonna get into that today, right? But best is subjective, right? Absolutely. So the suit that I got and the dress shoes and the button down and the tie, is that worth as much as my Jordans? Is that worth as much as my polo and my jeans? Right? As we determine what's best, is best monetary or is best what this local body determines, right? So in my mind, if your best is a long dress, with, you know, your ankles are covered, well, praise God. And if your best is $250 J's with a Louis Vuitton shirt and $100 jeans, then praise God, right? But I think in my mind, and I'm gonna ask you, there's a story that you always say, and it's about your mom. When she first got into church, how she came as she was. She looked around and was like, okay, I just see how things are done. Nobody told her, just by the example, I see how everybody dresses the best. They're modest. They and whatever the best is with what they got to them is that they bring their best offering to God. I don't know if you want to tell that story real quick.
No, I mean, it's good. I think you made the point. Basically, I mean, she came into the church. She was a new believer. She looked around, and nobody had to tell her certain things, right? She just picked it up because people were living that way, and she started making changes in her life. So nobody had to indoctrinate her, brainwash her, you know, delineate all the rules of the church. She was like, okay, that's what they're doing. Maybe I want to follow that. It was the example that they had. So I get where you're coming from there. All right, so let me move to something else real quick. This is still about change, all right? What things possibly need to change? Let's talk about preaching. And we're going to let y'all be free because we both pastors, all right? So you can be free. It's all good. We ain't going to be offended. Just don't name no names or nothing like that, okay? Cool. But like, for real, like on the video, and maybe you didn't see it because it was in part 1, but he talked about now in preaching, we need to start having more conversations, right? Even sometimes dialogue, maybe even preaching shorter. Like, what would you like to see from a pastor as they're speaking as we come out of this pandemic to hold your attention with the church?
Well, when you say time, I'm just having this conversation. When we say time, like even if you look at music, okay, back then cats was dropping $20, $30 songs on an album. Now you look at albums, now it's like 12 to 18 songs. our attention span has gone down a lot. Okay? So I think, yes, shorter and to the point, because I feel like a lot of the times when preachers get carried away, it's a lot of, like, you lost me there, you know? And as far as conversations happen, the way we are, it might be a little bad, but we don't like to be told what to do. I'm just speaking. I'm just being real. So, but if you bring yourself down to my level, not saying I'm below anybody, but there's a lot of I'm above you and I'm better than you. So if you can humble yourself down and I can see you as a person, like, okay, for example, if I'm going to do outreach, right, and there's let's say there's somebody involved in a gang life, right? They're not going to be as comfortable talking to a person about their experiences if somebody is dressed up in a suit and got a cane in his hand, rather than a person just chilled out in some jeans. Now, okay, I'm a little more comfortable. Okay. Yeah.
Don't beat us up too bad.
See,
but I'm not gonna say I don't love a good, if the Spirit leads you and we're all there with you, go ahead, go ahead, I'm just saying, like, sometimes preachers are feeling themselves instead of. I feel like sometimes preachers get into their own word because, at least in my experience at my church with my pastors, they don't bring us, like, I work in the media department, they don't bring us sermons until the day of. So, like, if they're just writing whatever the Spirit tells them to write, and then they start reading it and they're giving it to the people, and they're like, this is good, like, and they hear it for themselves, and so they start preaching and they're feeling themselves because Spirit's in them, but, like, the audience is kind of just like, well, it's been an hour and a half and I'm a little hungry. I'm not gonna hold you, like, I haven't eaten today. Most people get up and they go to church and then they eat after and take a Sabbath nap. So, like, I haven't eaten and it's 1:45, 2 o'clock. I've been here since 10. When are we gonna end this? But, like, other times it's not a bad thing. I think it's just about, like, when the Spirit hits and that the Spirit is hitting everybody, then it's like, go ahead. But, like, I definitely think more conversations is necessary. And I will give y'all credit because in Connection we have way more conversations than we do anything. But I do know, like, sometimes I just want to sing. Like, sometimes I just want to cry out to God and be there. Like, sometimes the conversation is cute, but, like, that's not what I'm here for. Like, I want to cry out. I want to speak to God the way I'm comfortable speaking to God. And then sometimes I'm like, let's actually hash this out. Let's talk about this, that, and the third, and this biblical context and this biblical context. Like, I think it just depends on, like, the atmosphere, but I think variety for sure will definitely give more people, because if they're like, I don't know what's going to happen at church today, I'm super excited, maybe more people will show up because it'll be like an event. Like, you don't really know what's always going to happen at an event. You just assume, you just assume whatever happens is going to happen.
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't think we should focus so much on just the act of a sermon or preaching, because, like she said, for me personally, I'm a music person. If the music is not hitting for me, I am less inclined to listen to the sermon. So if tithe and offering might hit, somebody might have a very good testimony on why they're giving back. That might make me more inclined to listen or just hear somebody out throughout the whole service. So, it's not just preaching, it's other aspects too that help with the sermon.
Yeah, I like that. I like the word you use, variety, right? There's options because people sense and experience God in different ways. But we have very limited options, right, in our church service. And the thing is, like, our whole service is kind of like geared towards the sermon. Like, everything is building up towards that. So if the pastor, and we're going to speak about us for a second, if he doesn't hit, you know what I'm saying? If the people not feeling it, then the whole service falls flat. You know what I'm saying? But yet we can't, it's like people don't want to shift things or change things in order to make that better. Like, what if we were just talking about this, right? What if we put the sermon at the beginning? We just did like a short sermon at the beginning, right, to set the tone. And the rest of the time was praise and worship. Just what you wanted, right? Singing. You would love that.
I would actually love that. I'm not gonna hold you.
Okay. All right.
That's where my spirit resides, but I'm not everybody, so I'm not gonna sit here and be like other people would hate that, because there are people who can't sing. There are people who just, they don't tap their toe correctly to the beat, or maybe they don't feel it. So I think that's a great idea, and I think like if that's the first Sabbath, cool. And then the second Sabbath, we do preliminaries and we make the announcements and stuff. Like we have to remember that, at least in my church, when we go back, services are finna be an hour. So like if the sermon is already 45 minutes, if the sermon is 30 minutes, that means there's only 30 minutes to get through announcements, transfers, children's story. Like there's not much time for everything else. So like you have to compromise things. Like you have to let some things go, let the announcements play, and then no one gets up and says them. Like you have to learn how to make adjustments, because we are literally, at least I don't know about everybody else, but Rachel Simone Marissa James Mason will not be going to church the way she used to go to church, because I'm not sitting in a pew for 4 or 5 hours when I could be out enjoying my Sabbath, resting, getting my full attention, like being out in nature or doing community service. Like I don't want to be stuck in a church until from the sunrise to sunset anymore. Right. I want to be in church, give me a little boost. All right, let's go out in the community.
Like a pep rally, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, by the way, those announcements are a problem. They are a major problem in a lot of our churches. They are a problem. Anyway, all right, we got to move. So, check this out. First, we want you guys to be in the comments right now. Start dropping your questions in your comments, because we're going to discuss them in a second. I want to stay with my panel just for like 2 more minutes to talk about this interview. In terms of leadership, right? We're talking about things that probably need to change after the pandemic. The Doggettes talked about how we need to start paying people. and does the lack of paying, right? And not saying everybody's money hungry, but you pay your plumber, you pay your mechanic, you pay other people, right? Like you pay them for excellence. Do you think that this contributes to why our services are not excellent and doesn't hit, as you said, Rachel, and doesn't really appeal to people? Y'all tell me, what's up?
As someone who does have an actual position in my church, like an actual lead position, I'm not gonna hold you. I was having a conversation with someone in my team, and he was like, I don't really think about this job the way I think about my job, because this is volunteer. And if my job were to ask me to do the things that you guys are asking me to do, I'd probably be doing them. So I'm not going to sit here and say, no, we need to put everybody on a salary, because yes, this is still a ministry, but I definitely don't think it would hurt to show some type of appreciation for your time, valuation for your time. Because if I'm spending, like I said earlier, 4 to 5 days in the church, pre-recording, streaming stuff, that's time that I could be using for something else. That's time that there's only 24 hours in a day, and I'm giving you 4 to 5 hours of my day that I should be spending studying, sleeping, because there are nights I've been there nights, come in and the sun was up, and leave and the sun was down. Like, it's not a sin to pay those who work for you. It's not a sin to pay those who want to do the ministry. And I guarantee you, if you started paying people to do all of these things like video, media, like all these things that are important to reach out to the people who matter the most, the people who are not in the church, the people who are not well versed in the Bible, if you were paying people to give good presentations to the people who needed them, maybe you would have more people, and then maybe you wouldn't be scrounging for stuff. Like, we wouldn't have to worry about offering coming in or anything, because people would start coming faithfully because they would like what they're seeing.
Let me say something on that real quick, and then we're gonna go to our comments and bring back Regina and let you guys talk some more. But the Adventist Church is extremely talented in music. You know what I'm saying? Hate to name a secular artist, but Brian McKnight comes from this church. You know what I'm saying? Come on, buddy. Somebody, amen. It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's all good. We good. We here. All right. No, but I'm serious. We got the Aeolians or whatever. We got what's the acapella group, man? It slipped my mind. Committed. Take six, and Committed. We have so much, right? But in the church, they can't give their all to the body of Christ, because they have to have other jobs in order to, feed their families and stuff like that. And so it would be nice, and not to compare denominations, that's not what we're doing, But like in the Kojic denomination and other denominations where music, they want the music to be excellent. You know, they want the service because it's before God to be excellent. It would be nice if we could find a way, you know, to make this a full-time salary or at least a stipend so that people can contribute more. So I'm assuming you all agree with that. Okay. Okay, all right. So check this out, y'all. We're going to go to the bumper real quick. We want you to please put your comments inside the chat right now and your questions. We're about to go to all of them. My esteemed panel here is going to discuss them all. We're going to bring back Regina, and we'll be right back with you in about a couple seconds. All right, let's go. Welcome, Regina. Pastor Johnson. You good? We can switch. You go. Okay. So we're glad to have Pastor Johnson back with us again. We want everybody on this. By the way, it's fortunate that we have her because these nice paintings are done by the artist, Regina Johnson. Go to her Facebook and Instagram. Check her out. She actually did a mural the other day, didn't you, as well? So she's really coming up, and we're really glad to have her. All right? So, one more question, and then we'll put some of the comments on the screen so we can deal with them. Another thing that Doggette talked about in that interview was our buildings. And I've heard so many young adults, I'm just going to use the words that they use. One of the young adults told me, like, our buildings suck.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Like, our buildings are terrible. They're old. They're not usable, yada, yada. So let me just go around real quick. If there is one thing that you think, let's just say money was not an option, if there is one thing every church needs to add or needs to have as a part of their building, in your mind, what would that thing be? All right? At least just one thing.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
So in my mind, the one thing that the church would need is whatever the community needs. It just, you know what I'm saying? Like for example, right? It doesn't. If I say a basketball gym, well, what if there's already a YMCA 5 miles from the gym? Then there's no need for a basketball gym. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? For example, right? We pastor at Hilltop, right? It's a food desert. There's no supermarket 5 to 10 miles. So why don't we just have a local market there? That would make more sense, right? Now, of course, you know, there's a whole bunch of logistics, right? But what I'm saying is, like, it's if you take a survey or inventory of what the community would need, then good Wi-Fi. Thank you. Good Wi-Fi. Good Wi-Fi. You know what I'm saying? But it's what do they need? You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, again, going back to the whole, VIX does not cure everything. Yeah. It's whatever they need, then that's what we got to get.
Okay, so Regina, now you're in a building project with Pastor Myron Edmonds in Cleveland, and you guys are on the cusp of building something revolutionary, honestly. Like, I guess maybe you could talk about one of the things that you're going to have in that building that you think churches should have.
Yeah, I think and this is not, I love how Max gave his answer. Along the same lines, I think a multi-functional space, right, which allows for that flexibility of what the community needs right now. Right? To be able to meet the need, whatever that need may be. As you're continually growing and having those conversations, and as time changes, even being able to stay up to date with the community. You know what I mean? There may be a moment where the community, you know, yes, there may be a YMCA. Like, actually, in ours, the YMCA actually closed down. Right? And so you're able to have, your space is so flexible that you can say, hey, now I have a space where I can host the kids. Look, let's move these chairs out the way. Let's move this out. Let's bring out some dodgeballs and let's play dodgeballs with the kids. You know what I'm saying? So being able to have that multi-flex type of space and having the mindset to be able to actually use it to be able to flex.
All right, Rachel. Don't hurt us too bad now. Come on, man.
I actually like Connection, or at least what I've been told about Connection is y'all want to build a community center, and like, you don't want it to be like churches, as BC just put in the comments. Churches were made for sermons. Like, another person put in the comments, and they mentioned the children. Like, I remember when I was a kid, and I remember being in the church and being told, you have to be quiet, you have to sit here. I'm a kid. I want to move. I want to run. I want to play. I want to have fun. Like, I'm not listening to the sermon. Let's be realistic. I do not know any kids who are 8, 9, 10, 11 who are actually listening to the sermon and taking in-depth notes and like, ooh, that's good. Let me write that down and go back to it. Like, having a space for the kids, having a space for the young adults, and like for people who, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, we need to cut out traditional sermons because baby boomers are still alive. So like, that's what they want. So give them what they want, but don't just only give them what they want. Like, have a young adults place, have some classrooms, some places where people can learn, where people can, I don't know. Okay, I'm reading that, but it's fine. Having rooms and spaces where everyone can kind of just come and be who they are. It is so hard to be in a church where you feel like you can't be yourself. Because how are you going to get the spirit if you're closed off?
My Lord, that was a whole word. All right. Josiah, talk to us, man.
I mean, I really can't say really what the community needs and for all ages as well. Because, and going back to my old point where it's, you know, the young adults have a thing and the older people are just like, you know, they don't come. But I know like when we had basketball games, the funnest games was when everybody was there. When everybody's cheering me on, you know, when I went up, you know, and won, you know, I was a bucket. So, but I mean, seriously, when a space where everybody can be.
I got you. Yeah, I think for me, this is one thing, and y'all don't have to agree with me on this. I don't necessarily want the building to look like a church from the outside, right? I want it to be a place where people are attractive, where people are appreciative of it. They want to come in. It's a safe space. But I'd rather it not look like something with a steeple if it doesn't have to be that way, because people interpret that in so many different ways. All right? All right, yo. We got 15 minutes left. We're going to the screen now to your comments and your questions. So, Mona Lisa, thank you for your question. She said, any advice for small churches that don't have a lot of funds and barely have people to volunteer? Any advice for small churches that don't have a lot of funds and barely have people to volunteer? Now, I'm going to go to Pastor Max on that just because you've heard us mention connection, and some of you may not know. Pastor Max and myself were brought here to start a young adult church. We had a young adult church plant. In many ways, it is still going on. We have Bible studies every Friday night. You can go to our Facebook page and check it out. But Max, you're mostly dealing with volunteers right now. But she's saying, like, what if you don't have volunteers? What can you do as a small church, I guess, to have some kind of effect on the community or do ministry? I don't know.
Man, great question. So I would say, quick story, all right? The Niagara Falls Bridge. Quick story. This is a good story, though. No, real quick. Hey, hold on. I got 2 minutes. Niagara Falls Bridge, right? Canada and America were at war, but then they decided to become allies. So the area of Niagara Falls, there was no bridge, and there was like, it's going to take too long for us to go around the mountains in order to create a line of communication. So one engineer was like, why don't we have a kite flying contest? Bring all the kids from the city. We'll give them $5. All the kids come. A 16-year-old by the name of Holman Wash flies his kite, and he flies his kite all night long, doesn't make it. He gets stranded on the bank of the river on American side for 8 days. Eventually, his kite makes it over to the other side. And in other words, the only reason why we have a Niagara Falls is because a kid flew his kite. And to the question, what do I do if I don't have any funds or I don't have any people? I'm saying, start where you are. Fly your kite. That's all it is, right? So if you got 3, do the best you can with 3. And those 3, you know what I'm saying, begin to disciple, begin to reach out to people, begin to make connection, meet the community, scratch where it's, meet people one by one. And I'm saying just fly your kite, because in my mind, bridges and kites don't belong in the same conversation. And what I'm saying is, again, fly your kite. Even if it's small, you can still do big ministry with a small church.
Yeah. Can I answer?
Yeah, sure.
I would say invest in what you have, which is kind of even what you're saying. Because I think that sometimes, like, even when you look at big churches and we have like a lot of people, we already talked about that, there's a lot of people who are not really committed. And sometimes we have these big large numbers of volunteers that aren't committed. And it's just like, I would rather have 3 dedicated, committed people than 500 volunteers that are not going to be committed, who aren't going to show up, who are it's in the way, like taking up space, and it's more of a distraction, right? So I would say if you can find 1 or 2 committed people, work with them, work with what you got, pour into them, and from there, I think you're able to grow. From there, you're able to do things. You do smart, start small, and then keep your eyes open. And this is gonna sound cliche, but pray about it. I'm being dead serious. Like, pray about it and ask God, like, I need people. Like, I need somebody for this, and I believe He'll move.
Absolutely. All right. Yo, let's pull up another comment or a question from the audience if we can. And whoever has something, you can drop it in there right now. Anything you want to ask pertaining to young adults, to the church, to ministry, this pandemic, you can drop it in there right now. We'd love to. Tammy Russell, what's up? I know you. That's my clerk over there at Hilltop. We need to have a place for children, that will support our young adults and their families. Love it. Rochelle, you talked about that a minute ago. It's funny because Max and I went to, what was that? Catalyst Conference in Georgia. Andy Stanley, one of my favorite preachers there. And we went into this building. We didn't know what it was. It was a whole building dedicated to children. Yeah, and in the building, like the floor was painted as a street. They had street signs. Each room was like a different thing. They had like a little store. They had a movie theater for the kids. I mean, it was an entire experience. I wonder if we give our children that type of experience, or we settle for children's story. Nothing against children's story, but we settle for it instead of giving them what they need. You're a children's pastor. Talk to me. You deal with the kids a lot.
So, I'm not a children's pastor. Just want to correct it because I don't need that going. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that to go out there. I do love the kids though. I love the children, and I just think it's I agree that it's important. And I think one of the reasons, we're trying to figure out how to get people in the church and how to grow our churches. I guarantee you, one of the ways to grow your church is to invest in the kids. Your people, we have all seen it. We all probably got friends that done had babies. Well, I should start. Wait, hold on. They left the church, right? Sorry, they left the church. They end up having a child. And then it's like, I gotta go back because I want to raise my child in the church, right? And it's a draw. It's a draw, and we want to. And at the same time, we need to be teaching our kids while they're young, so that they will grow up and have a foundation. So for sure.
That's good. All right. Reggie love the kids. Yeah, that's true. I love the kids. All right, what's up? What we got next? Jason Bolgen. What's up, man? Pastor, friend of mine, friend of ours. Is there a church within the Adventist context that you would consider a great model for children's ministry?
I think Oakwood is doing a good job right now.
That's true.
Virtually,
That's true.
Oakwood is doing a good job, yeah.
The virtual is absolutely amazing. I don't know what they were doing before, but right now, I don't know the name of the pastor, but he is doing a great job. Anybody else?
There are some.
We just don't know them yet.
In California, right? Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll check them out. Okay. What are, Sade Hollins, what's up? What are paid positions outside of pastors, media, and musicians that you feel the church, local, or conference-wide should invest in? Yeah, absolutely. Please, go ahead.
Well, not all churches are paying their musicians and media. So I'm going to put that out there for those who don't know. Every church, every Adventist church is not paying their media team, is not paying their musicians. So even if we could just start there, I guarantee a whole lot of things will change. But even with that, people who you want, like community service, or because community service jobs is not just the actual community service event. It's the setup, and it's the shutdown, and it's the getting online and putting up the flyers and all that good stuff. Like, it's more than just the initial event. There's planning that goes into that, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of planning that goes into community service. So definitely when you're thinking about other positions that should be paid, community service is definitely one of them. Ushers, deacons, deaconesses, I definitely think they should be like, I didn't think just because I know how hard deacons work, how hard elders work and all that stuff, like they should definitely be paid. because they come in there at the bleak hours of the morning. Like, at least in my church, there has to be a deacon there when we set up for church. And church for us starts at 10, but we're there at 9 o'clock in the morning. So like, they don't have to be at church, but they have to be in the building to let us in, to close down. They monitor the building, they clean, they paint, they do all the things for us, and they should definitely be getting, if not like hourly pay, like a stipend would be real cute. And I guarantee there's not a person in the world who would not accept a monetary gift. I don't know them.
I would accept it. Anyway, all right, so I have one suggestion, and Max and I talk about this all the time. Bible workers, right? But and Max spoke about virtual Bible workers now. People who can engage with people online and don't have to see them face to face. But, you know, the pastor shouldn't be the only one doing Bible studies. Right. Amen, somebody. Come on, don't leave me here by myself. All right. You know, we need other people who can do it, and paid people who this is their job to win souls so that, you know, the evangelism effort can be fruitful and the pastor just not preaching into the air. All right?
I'm going to hop in there.
Yep.
I see somebody here saying, you know, I think somebody said Sabbath lunch. There's some stuff there. Hospitality, but there was some other stuff. Can you put that one back? Hospitality, Sabbath lunch, children's ministry, deaconess should be paid. Okay, so kind of along the lines of what you're saying. I actually, if we can, just stay there for a second.
Okay, sure.
Because I don't want to say I don't agree, but I do want to put a little pushback, because I don't want us to. I think sometimes, just as human nature, we are very we can go from one end to the other extreme, right? Where it's just like we go from paying nobody to like everybody, you know, I mean, everybody should get paid, right? But I do think there is an element of service. I think that's what church is about. Like, we just had our first half of our discussion, you know, of being about wanting to give back and wanting to use our gifts. I think when we talk about payment, I think it goes into along the lines of even how you were mentioning, like, you know, when there's so many hours, you know, that goes beyond that, or, you know, certain jobs that can literally get it to the place where, and I think this is where we really need to be moving, to the place where we have people that this can be their job. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a difference between paying somebody, because I really, honestly, I don't want to see us go into that direction where we're paying people to serve the Lord and you know, just give my gifts of opening the door. I'm not taking away from ushers, but I'm taking away from, you know, some of the things that we're doing. I think we're called to do that and be a part of the church. But I think, you know, if you have an outreach leader who is able to like quit their job, and like my whole job is to make sure, I'm just making sure there's an outreach plan. I'm going to committee meetings. I'm in the community, going to community meetings. I know the mayor. You know, I'm doing these different things, and that's my role, and that's my job. I would love to see that. I think Sade is the one who asked the question, like having a social worker that's connected to the church, where, you know, who's able to kind of help facilitate these things that we're doing with the community. Therapists and different things like that, that, you know, we're really able to really just connect with the community, but actually just making those connections. But at the same time, too, last thing, and then I'm done. I think there's that factor, and then there's the idea of the church actually starting to connect with the community to the point where you know therapists in the city. You know social workers. You know what I'm saying? You know people that are doing these things. So like, we know when somebody comes, hey, I know who to call. You know what I mean? So it's not that we have to pay everybody for everything, but we have the right connections, because that can help too.
Yeah, I'm going to say this before Max. I know you had something you wanted to add. Just, but I think obviously the obvious thing is giving and money is an issue. Yeah. Right? We want to pay everybody, but money is an issue. And so maybe, you know, there has to be some kind of restructuring or something to be done within the church, within whatever, to be able to see if we can pay people. So we have to acknowledge that fact. Yeah. All right. Okay, one last question. Are we really going to take it from Pastor BC? No. That's the last one? Okay, all right. Ebony, thank you for the question. Here it is. Many young people are leaving our churches. That's the truth. Is the church not doing something right? How can we reassure the youth of their value, and what methods and practices can we use to raise their esteem in God? Kind of 3 questions in one. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. As far as esteem goes, like I said before, and this is personal for me because it happens a lot, see me as a person that you can be on the same level as, because you lose me when you look down on me. But when we're on the same level, and I can talk to you about what we do as a younger generation. and not be judged or looked at as, oh, he's wilding or he's just angry all the time. I want somebody to understand me. And it doesn't have to be all I want is a relationship with somebody. That's all I want. I want a relationship, and I want conversations, open conversations to be had where I'm not judged, where church can be a place where, yes, you have your pastor, but I also have an auntie here. Like you said, it's supposed to be family oriented. So I can call you my auntie. I can call you my uncle. You know, I can call you like a second dad to me because, you know, we have that connection. We have that deep understanding. We're on the same level here. I would be so much more freed if somebody came to me and was like, oh, I had anger issues as a kid. I had anger issues as a child. You know, that would help. And especially a lot of these kids are very curious about things. So because a lot of the times the way people parent, the way people educate is don't do this. Why don't I do this? Just stay away from it because I said so. It's bad. Now we like to ask questions because we hard-headed. But I mean, also too, we just need to know. We need to know why. Why can't I smoke? It looks fun. Explain that to me. You know? So if somebody can walk us through their experiences and have that, you know, relationship.
I love it. Anybody else want a quick response? Yep.
I definitely think that it's something going on in the church, but I'm not going to specifically say it's the elders or like the people, the leaders. I'm not going to say that like all of the problem comes with them. I'll definitely say that a good portion of it is the members who are like, you wear this, or you had a baby out of wedlock, or you ain't been you're not married and you're 36, you're 37. Like when you go have some kids, like all this stuff. I definitely think what Josiah is saying is a fact, because like, why are you going to talk to me about how I'm dressed in church or what I do when I'm here, but you don't know what I do on my spare time? You don't even know what my favorite color is. Like, you don't even know my last name. There are people who still mispronounce my name. Like, and I've been at Ephesus my entire life. So like, I mean, like, I don't really know if there's much more to say to that. Like, yes, it's definitely relationships, but like presentation, like your first impression is everything. And I'm terrible with names, but I remember faces, and I remember what you say to me the first time I remember and see your face. So if the thing that I see, or any young adult who's coming in, and the very first thing they see is you with your nose turned up, acting like you don't know no better, acting like you weren't saved at some time, like, then yeah, I'm going to be like, don't talk to me, and I'm not coming back. Like, I can go somewhere else and get Jesus, because there are churches abundant, right? So like, if you want people to be in your church, you want people to serve in your church, you should recognize that like everybody, first of all, you're not perfect. So let's step back and like evaluate ourselves. But then in evaluating ourselves and recognizing that church is a place you come to receive healing, to receive knowledge, to receive something so that you can give back to the community, you have to remember like, everybody else is also doing the same thing. And if everyone else is doing the same thing, that means there's nothing wrong with the way I come to church. There's nothing wrong with the things that I say. There's nothing wrong with the things that I do on my free time, because I am not perfect either. Like, I think it's really just what you said. Like, let's realize we're all humans and we're all here to serve God. Like, there's no need for you to be like, oh, I'm this, that, and the third, and you ain't done nothing, and you ain't done this. Like, I don't want to hear that from, like, what does that have to do with me? Like, I don't care. I'm here because I recognize I have a need. I have a passion. I have a fervor to talk to Jesus, and I seek him personally. So like, your imperfections, the things that you're projecting on me because they're your problems or things that you regret about your past, is none of my business.
Can I piggyback off of that real quick? Just quick comment. It's like, a lot of the times as well, I find people think they know me because they know my parents.
That's such a fact.
Like you, like people walk, oh, I know you when you was in diapers. That was back when I was in diapers. You don't know. Right. So, you know, just that too, I think is a big thing, especially when you have parents who are very involved and have leadership roles in the church, is we get looked at as our parents, or I know you, like, get to know me for me.
Me and my mama are not the same people. Like,
yeah.
I hear that. So listen, we're the pastors up here. We try to keep it real, but you guys are the real ones, for real. Like, y'all need to start your own consulting agency. Y'all need to travel around to all the churches and tell the plain, unadulterated truth, though, like, for real.
But do they want to hear it?
Uh-oh. All right. So that we appreciate all the responses tonight. Yo, we hope that all of you have enjoyed this. We're so sorry that we're out of time. We really would like to carry this a whole lot longer, but this has been good. But watch this. Remember the theme for this young adult camp meeting, which is we're not next, we're right now. So everything that we've talked about tonight, pastors, if you're watching, conference leaders, if you're watching, listen to your young adults as they're telling the plain, unadulterated truth, and do everything in your power to try to adapt to what they're saying so that we can make sure that we retain our young adults. Listen, before we close, we got to give a shout out and a special word of thanks to first Jermaine Jackson. Everybody clap it up for Jermaine. He was the treasurer of the Allegheny West Conference, and he is leaving us, but he started this process of getting the young adult camp meeting together. And then we had Sister Jasmine Best, who's here in the studio right now. Yes. You coming on camera? You coming on? No? Okay, all right. Anyway, she took over and made sure that we had everything together, as well as Gerson as well. Yeah. He is a young adult as well. Just had a baby. Congratulations to him as well, his second child, and is doing a phenomenal job here at the conference. And we have Pastor BC as well. He's here. No, but seriously, Pastor BC is in the studio as well. But listen, we love you all. Thank you so much. Happy Sabbath to everyone.
And we want to remind you that this is one service of many that are going on right now. So we want to encourage you, first of all, to join us tomorrow for our young adult service. It's going to be at 2 p.m. And so we would love to see you there. But also, we want to invite you to the 11 o'clock service as well. That's the adult service, but we're all welcome to go there as well. And we want to invite you to go to our website at awconf.org, and you'll be able to find all the information there, a nice schedule for you. And we are happy that you joined us tonight. And we hope that if you take nothing else away, that you remember that God made you great. And that even as, we have our frustrations, and even as we have the different things that we're going on that might make us, uncomfortable or maybe frustrated, God still put so much inside of us that we don't want to give up on the church. We don't want to give up on God. And we want to use our gifts, use our talents, and use every single thing that God placed inside of us. Like my homie over here said, go start what it is that He's placed in your heart. Talk to your leaders. Don't get to the place where you just become bitter, and we become these bitter young adults where we're just walking around mad, complaining, and we're not really committed, and we're not really putting in the work. So put in the work, and you can start by putting in the work by joining us tomorrow at 2 p.m. We'll see you there.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.